Daniels, who will be talking to us this evening on the topic Understanding Economic Development and its Impact in Achieving Agenda 2063. We cannot begin this session without paying homage to one of our African leaders who has left us, and we are talking of His Excellency John Pombe Joseph Magufuli. Please, can we observe a minute of silence for the president who has left the scene? May he rest in perfect peace. Daniels, you're welcome again to the Sumpon Global TV. And today, after racism of last achieving Agenda 2063, I want to welcome you in the studio after a long time. I would have said Happy New Year.
Thank you very much.
Because this is the first time we are meeting this year. And I wish you join my voice on the Sumpon Global TV to wish you Happy New Year. Welcome to the studio.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome, everybody, and we are having a small technical challenge, and we are hoping that we're going to have it repaired as soon as possible. You're welcome again to the program, Mr. Bakare, and like our moderator, Elvis Mbolifor said, you're welcome. Happy New Year. This is the first time we're having you again for this year, and we have been having you the previous years. Today, ladies and gentlemen, our conversation is on the topic understanding economics and its financial impact in achieving Agenda 2063. And today we are having the guest speaker, Daniel Bakare, and of course, our host is Elvis Mbolifor. I am just tuning in because of his connection and the failure of the technique. So I'm hoping that he's going to come back to continue the work. Mr. Bakare, you're welcome to the program. You're welcome. Tell us who you are, what you do, and what you think about economics and development, but most especially in achieving Agenda 2063. This is your platform, sir.
Thank you very much for the opportunity given to me. I am an agricultural economist by training and a finance expert by experience and a development cooperation enthusiast by qualification. I am very passionate about the prosperity of the African nations, and that was one of the things that drove me to study development cooperation in the Institute of Sustainable Development here in Germany. Talking about my day-to-day activities revolve around my small logistic business that I run here in Germany. And I'm delighted to be on with you today, Mr. Mbolifor, to discuss the impact of economics on the financial status of the African people vis-a-vis achieving the Agenda 2063. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for that elaborate introduction. And today, like I said, we'll talk about understanding economic development and its impact in achieving Agenda 2063. And you are actually into business, into economic activities, and that is why we actually are happy to have you on our platform. And I will begin with the very first question, which is, what is economic development?
Well, basically,
why is it important? Maybe you begin with telling us how that.
Okay, if I heard you correctly, I would just do a quick explanation of what economics means. That's what I would call the high-level description or definition, and the classes of economics that we should be talking about vis-a-vis development of the African nations. And then we'll look at the factors, some of the factors that the African Union has highlighted as indices of economic development come 2063. Actually, these first indices, that is economic development, is probably the pivot of the Agenda 2063, seeing that, it's the first, and every other thing revolve around it. If this is not actualized, if this doesn't come to pass, if it doesn't get to happen, the other parts of the agenda, the other aspirations, as they are called, we have 9 other aspirations, making it 10. The other 9 other aspirations are not going to be actualized, or are not going to be fully actualized. So quickly, I would like to say that economics is the science or the field of endeavor that seeks to describe the activities that surround the production, the distribution, and consumption of goods and services. Now, economics is a life science that we carry out every day. It is because a baby requires the satisfaction of his or her economic needs that the baby cries, even though the baby does not understand what economics imply. However, at this level of discussion, we could break economics into 2 very broad points, 2 very broad parts, and that's the macroeconomics and microeconomics. For macroeconomics, we talk about the factors, the high level factors that affect the continent or the nation in particular. So we are talking about subjects like GDP, like per capita income, unemployment rates, and such high level factors that are deliberated, and that the impact of government is directly required, to make a difference. So of course, a major part of macroeconomic factor is the prosperity of the people, which is indicated by how much their output is individually and of course collectively. Then we go to the microeconomics. That's the economics that concern the life of the individual people. That's the economics as to whether people have in their homes enough disposable income to live the life of their desire, or at least live the life that is minimally expected of them to live. And those are subjects microeconomics seek to deal with, if the lives of people on an individual basis is getting improved or not, or how the factors, the bigger factors like the exchange rates, for example, the monetary policies, how it impacts the life of the common people, if people are living below the poverty line or above the poverty line, and what percentage of people are doing that. Now, looking at the aspiration 1 of the Agenda 2063, there are a couple of indices that the African Union has pinpointed as discussion points for economic prosperity. So I'm just going to quickly mention them as before we proceed. We talk about ending poverty, or at least reducing it. We talk about inequalities, or eliminating or reducing inequality of income and opportunities. We talk about job creation, addressing the challenges of rapid urbanization, which of course has its benefits, improvement of habitats and access to basic necessities of life, providing social security, and subjects such as developing Africa human and social capital. We also have discussions around the exploiting of vast potential of Africa's blue ocean economy, and of course, putting in place measures to sustainably manage the continent's rich biodiversities, which include forests, land, waters, using all of the factors and measures that affect or that deal with climate change and the risks that come as a result of climate change.
We will be coming back to what you said, enough disposable income and improving standards of living in our subsequent questions. But I wanted to ask, why is it that economic development is centered on the understanding of the problems of development?
Okay, thank you very much for that question. It is absolutely important because the life of the people of the African nations depend largely on the health of their economies. Because the macroeconomics, like I said earlier, the larger factors that deals with that is at the level of the nations, because it directly or indirectly impacts the micro. It is very important that economics is looked into at that higher level. The understanding of economics and the prosperity of the people is directly linked together. There is no gainsaying that. Countries that do not have long-term plans for their economies would discover that they end up playing the second fiddle to other countries. And this is one of the things that the African nations should take as a cue from the West. I do hope that our discussion will steer in that direction today. But the something that I would like to drop today here is that if there is no planning, then anywhere we get to will be an acceptable destination, and it gladdens one's heart to see the development of an agenda like Agenda 2063. It implies that the leadership of the African nations are thinking and they are forward thinking, and it's interesting to know. However, making a plan is not as important as following through with the plan. Even if circumstances and situations in the environment change, we call upon all the stakeholders, and we are also part of the stakeholders, so we are speaking to ourselves, but those that are decision makers, that influence the macro factors in the nations of Africa. We call upon them to follow through with this plan and to etch their name in the sand of time when it is their turn to take decisions. And I do hope that they will do that.
I tell you a small story. I got into a bus in here, because the bus had an air condition, we were charged an extra 500 francs to pay for that service. And I was like, wow, Africa will really show one many things. And with that, I want to queue up asking that when we look at Africa, we cannot talk much on development. And we see some few African leaders who are providing roads which are supposed to be the basic needs that the African continent are supposed to have. But when somebody comes and is constructing roads, improving standards of living, that you said that we must be disposed of enough disposable income. And I was looking equally at some African countries with per capita income of about above 10,000, whereas we talk of other countries having a per capita income of just about $1 or $2. What is your take? What makes some of these countries so poor, have very low incomes, whereas we can say without any fear of favor or contradiction that Africa is a rich continent? Why some very poor countries in Africa?
Okay, thank you very much for that question. From data available from previous studies, I think countries like Equatorial Guinea are one of the highest per capita income in Africa, close to 9,200. and then followed closely. That's followed closely by not very closely, but that's followed by South Africa with 7,300, and then several others like that. It is unfortunate that the per capita income of very many African countries are not where it's supposed to be, despite the riches that you would experience or that you would notice in those nations. But I tell you that though Africa is not high up there among the community of nations, it has indeed come a very long way. Africa has come a very long way. I do not want us to look away from, the realities of our challenges and vis-a-vis how well we have done. The challenges of the individual nations, though peculiar, has some form of semblance compared to each other. You see the challenges of militia in very many parts of Africa. That alone is very detrimental. It's like a cog in the wheel of progress and advancement. You see, security challenges. Yeah, that's one of it. And then climate change is bearing its fangs against the people of the African nations. We do not want to begin to point fingers, but if we want to look at those who have worked against, or those whose activities have been detrimental to the advancement of the African nations, you would find out that a lot of us are not completely exonerated. And when I say a lot of us, I do not mean you or I as individuals. I mean the laity, the people of the African nations seem to not be contented, seem to not be tired or fed up with the predicament they find themselves. And can you blame them? Very many people do not even know that there is a better life. Very many people do not know that that there is supposed to be some more order, because as a result of years of bastardization of the mind of the people have come to accept what is subpar, the treatment that they get, the hundreds of cefas or cedis or naira in the case of Nigeria that they get during the 4-year electoral period, monies that cannot feed them for half day, but they sell their votes, they sell their future for leaders who themselves are irresponsible and rascals. We'll come to those leaders with time, but that's another side of it. The African people have suffered so much bastardization, not only from their leaders. When you look around and you see how the West has undermined Africa, people do not want us to say these things in the open, because it looks like you are stepping on bombs, or you are peeling the cover of old wounds. But the reality of the fact is that there are very many nations in the West that need to make special apologies to Africa because of the years of pillaging that they've done against. Africa has come a long way. I'm telling you, Africa is very resilient. Africa is very resilient. Africa has stood its ground despite the many challenges it has been subjected to. We can only look forward now and ask what the way ahead, how to improve the situation. So far, in spite of the challenges, the young people in Africa, have surmounted the problems they have. In spite of those challenges, you see billion-dollar companies, emerging out of Africa. It's just in spite of those challenges. You see citizens of African nations going to the world stage, and they are getting Grammy awards. They are making a difference. They are wowing the audiences that they come across. They are impacting lives. Nothing more. You can't take it away from the people of Africa, especially the young ones, because truly, despite their challenges, in spite of the limitations they've had, they have still been able to compete reasonably with the nations of the world. And I'm glad that some nations of Africa are taking steps in the right direction. I don't know if you're aware that the Ghanaian government just reached a resolution to not export their cocoa bean, their bean pod, out to Switzerland anymore, to Sweden anymore. And if this cocoa bean, it is not just about saying we are not exporting. I would want to challenge them. I would want to crave their indulgence. I mean, the government, the cocoa board in Ghana, for example, and other parts of of the African nations. It's not just enough to say we are not exporting anymore. Are there infrastructure to process these materials, these raw materials, these crops? Are there infrastructure that can add value to them? As much as 400% or 500% value is added to these products when it's sold back to the African nations. You see that in multiples of hundreds is the value eventually when it is sold back. Africa is waking up. I believe that there's a new move, and it's just a question of time. We will begin to see significant impact of this awakening.
You talked of some Africans not being aware that there is a better life. But we have seen youths in Africa who want to raise their voices that things are not done normally, but they are hushed down. What better way can they express their unhappiness towards these issues or these factors that can make life actually better?
Thank you very much. I am delighted about the advent of the internet, the social media. I think is one of the wonders of our time. I think is one of the best things that could possibly happen to man as it is. And this is the reason why I say this. There are many things that would have been easy for African leaders to get away with where there are no internet, even though some of them are so barbaric and they're so barbaric that they seek sometimes to shut down the internet in their countries, which is completely, unthinkable. But again, I'm going to cite an example to you of what happened in Nigeria in October of 2020, 20th of October 2020. That's like 4 months ago now, or 5 months now. Young people, innocent people, unarmed Nigerians sought to ask for a better life. They sought, they asked that the people that were supposed to kill them, that were supposed to keep them and secure them and enforce law and order. It is the same people that kidnap them, that extort them, and that kill them, that dismember their bodies. Gory sites that that we should not be talking about in public. And they sought for, they dared to ask for a better life. And rather than the government, rather than the government giving them a listening ear, the government decided to treat them like criminals, like condemned criminals. Whereas the same government negotiates with known criminals. The same government rehabilitates confirmed criminals. The same government, gives scholarship to hardened criminals. Then you begin to see the contrasts in the world where we find ourselves. You begin to see the contrast. You hear of a Bobby Wine that is being arrested every now and then just because he has a dissenting voice. You hear of a lot of African, activists that before they share a dissenting opinion, the forces of this federal of the state are swooped upon them and they incarcerate them. They kill some of them. However, though these things have been on for several years, the advent of social media, and I'm going to tie it up with the case in Nigeria, for example. The lady, or one of the ladies that is a prime witness of the October 20 case in Nigeria, had to run for her life, had to seek, solace in another country of the world, because as a result of the evidence that she put out to the world, her life was no longer safe in Nigeria. But you see, the evidence is out there. The internet never forgets. The internet never forgets. And my honest, friendly advice to the leadership of the African nations is that they had better understand that, there is a new breed of people out there. They had better smell the coffee. While there might not be too many honest persons of influence in the Western world that is coming as some savior to save the African nations. The leaders of African nations must understand that they are toying with a generation that is smarter than them, that has the ability to think into the future, that can plan, that has exposure, they've traveled, they've seen how life should be. Those few people, including those of us that are diasporans, those few people have the capacity to make significant impact. The Nigerian diasporas, for example, for 2019, sent back in remittances to Nigeria over $16 billion. That is way more than any kind of foreign direct investment. Those are the people that their voices count, or those are the people that their voices should count, even though according to the structure of government in many African nations, diasporans are not paid serious attention. But I assure you that there is a fresh move of change, and it's just a couple of years. Just in a couple of years, you will see significant impact of the people that are enlightened back home, and the impact of diasporans. So I must tell you, the internet has come to make things significantly better.
Internet has come to make things significantly better, you say. I wish to ask, for those countries that are developing so slowly, what are those economic factors that they actually need to have significant development?
We cannot overemphasize that, when the head is rotten, it's just a question of time. The other parts of the body will also begin to decay. I think that, the people that have some good head on their neck, and I mean enlightened citizens of African nation, should get more involved in politics. Should get more involved in, sorry to say, I take that back, they should get more involved in the process of leadership. Not just politics, because most of what you have in the African nations is not politics, but politricks and politics. We choose to call them that way on the Nigerian streets. We have a lot of politricians, people that do a lot of trick, and you have a lot of politivians. That's politives, people that steal, the future of, they seek to secure this future of unborn generations of theirs at the expense of the life, the welfare, the current welfare of the rightful owners. So leadership and the process of leadership must be looked into in the African nations. And I also want to believe that, we should be people that have long-term plans, and we look into the future. I said that earlier, but we can't overemphasize that, because the truth is that the structure of life in many African nations makes it difficult for people to be able to think long-term. People would rather sacrifice the future for a passing gain, for a gain, for a benefit of now. And do you want to blame them? Do you want to blame them? Someone needs to save his life now. Someone needs to, to be able to buy drugs, medicines, less than the equivalence of €5 or $5 or $2. And people have died because of their inability to access, very, very, very cheap medical services. And so when we talk about economic development, I said it earlier that every other facet of life in the African nation rests directly on the economic development of the nations. Health, even no matter how much you invest in the health of the people, or if the people are not economically advanced, if their life is not better, if the environment does not get better, everything is going to go down the drain all over again. You find that a lot of diasporans try to make effort in helping in their own little ways by giving supplies to hospitals in Africa, and you find out it is the same medical personnel that steal those materials and sell them. The people of the African nation need to understand that every such thing that they do that is detrimental to the progress or that is with the intent to satisfy their quest for now, as against securing the future. Every such thing that they do, it is like they are mortgaging the future of their unborn generation. And our politicians, these rascals that we have in government in most of the countries, they seem to have secured the lives of their own offsprings. They seem to have life laid out for them. In fact, many of them live abroad. Many of them are diasporans. I mean, the children and relations of politicians. And then when it is time, when there is a political post or a leadership position in places of authority, they still call on them to come and take charge, to come and take over the reins of affairs. Some of them, these leaders, they practically are planning, if it's possible, that their children and their offsprings will nothing will ail them, no harm will come to them. They just want their life to be smooth, even if it means pillaging the life of several millions of other people. So leadership, the process of leadership has got to change. There's need for a renewal of mind for the African people, and the few people that have the wherewithal, that have the knowledge, that have the understanding, that have the exposure, they must continue in this drive, in this awareness. I think my hosts have a bit of challenge, but yes, that's those are the things that needs to be done to make significant difference. And yes, the people that I said it earlier, that have some good head on their neck, the people that are right thinking, the people that are forward thinking, the people that have the solution, they must get into the process of leadership. They must, be conscious. They must be conscious. We all should not say that, oh, politics is dirty, so I don't want to get into it. No. If politics is dirty, it is because some people have made it dirty. Why can't you form a pathway? Some people say, oh, to form a structure, it's going to take a long time to form a structure. People have done it in time past, even though it took them years upon years to get their voices heard. They started from somewhere. The young people in Africa, who form the major part of the population, should understand that they need to start from somewhere. There are some young people that will be betrayers. There are some young people, like we have them in some parts of African country. I have myriads of examples in Nigeria as a case study of leaders, young people that are complete, misfits in the places where you found them. They are complete disaster, I must say. in the positions they hold. But those few people are not enough for us to they are disastrous performance. They are disappointing outing. Are not enough for us to jettison the idea that we all should get actively involved in the process of electing our leaders. If you can't, go there, if you can't be a leader yourself, you should know people that you can vouch for, and they might be able to use some of your support. They might be able to
Mm.
use
This
some of
is
your encouragement to get
mm.
to where they want to get to.
Thank you so very much, Mr. Bakare. Mr. Host is okay there. But before I give back to Mr. Host, Mr. Elvis Mbolifor, I'm very curious with the conversation of because now we're talking about politics and how important it is for people to really get into the process of voting the right kind of people. And my concern is also that many the righteous people and the people that ought to have understood the right things usually shy away from the process, what you call the process, the shy away from it. So how do we get to encourage them so that they get to understand that the country is laid upon their shoulder rather than that we keep complaining that we get involved. But this is not my conversation. On Thursday we have a political conversation here. I invite you all who are here to join our political conversation on Thursday, and I'm handing over to the moderator. You're welcome, Elvis. I hope your internet works now.
Okay. Yeah, a lot to rest
Thank you
on.
so much.
Okay, yeah, a lot rests on us enlightened African nationals to make the difference. You know, um, you probably know people maybe some 10 years back that would want to get into government, maybe because of the paucity, that's the lack of adequate knowledge. Maybe you were one of the people that discouraged them, that told them, no, it's not the right thing to do. As people that know better now, as people that are enlightened now, as people that are exposed now, we should make them understand that politics does not have to be dirty. Politics does not have to be backward. Politics does not have to be violent. Politics does not have to be undermining. We can all win together. Affiliation with a political party, for example, is should not be something that sets another person as your enemy or that makes somebody your favorite. It's this kind of awareness and conversation, and thankfully a platform like this is doing that. I do hope that a good number of people in the African nations will get to see this, and they will get to understand that the diasporans, apart from understanding that leadership is subpar in African nations, that diasporans are willing and ready to support them, to support those that have the right mindset, those that are competent, those that are willing, those that are ready, those that can brave the odds. Diasporans are ready to support them. And I do hope that I speak for a good number of, a good proportion of diasporans this evening. There is no one that is coming. There's no magic wand. There is no savior from anywhere that is coming to save the African nations. We have to rise up and take care and take charge of our lives by ourselves. And yeah, the awareness has started, and I do hope that it's not going to wane. We are going to push it forward.
Yeah, let me come in again. You talked about the different aspirations of Agenda 2063, which embodies all African countries. But then we do not see a progressive development going on in most of these African countries, if not all of the African countries. What strategies are the AU putting in place to monitor the development of these countries so that the agenda is
Um, Hello, I do hope that you can
Yeah,
hear me.
I was asking that what are the strategies put in place by the AU to monitor the development of these economic development of African countries so that all African countries can move together progressively towards achieving Agenda 2063.
Yeah, that's a very impressive one. I said at the beginning of my very brief presentation that the aspiration one, though being the first, is has the other aspirations as a pivot. You know, it constitutes the pivot of the other aspirations. For example, the aspiration two, which is an integrated continent that is politically connected based on the ideals of Pan-Africanism, is something that can help to further this. And this, but this is one of the ways that the African Union is seeking to achieve that. They are looking to accelerate progress towards continental unity and integration for sustained growth. You know, um, our trade, our free trade zones should be expanded. Trade between the nations of Africa should be made to be freer and freer. Exchange of goods and services and free movement of people should be looked into very much. And capital also should be able to move freely. I believe that the AU is fast tracking the CFTA agreement, and they are trying to improve connectivity through newer and bolder initiatives that link the continent by different ways, either by rail, by road, by sea, or by air. And they are also developing regional and continental power pools so that information communication technology we can synergize our resources to bring about an Africa that everybody wants. If you look at the aspiration three too, and I've dwelt very much on good governance because it's very, very important. You see that it talks about an Africa of good governance, respect for human rights, justice, and the rule of law. You see a lot of leaders, a lot of um, government officials and bodies of government disregarding flagrantly the rule of law in their countries. The AU should look at consolidating the gains of democracies, and they should also look at improving the quality of governance uh, at a global level, at a central level, by building strong institutions for the development of the individual states. And then they should also facilitate the emergence of development-oriented and visionary leadership. Visionary leadership. And we can't overemphasize the importance of vision. If we play the 3-year game, if we play the 5-year game, we won't see beyond 5 years. You won't be able to dream beyond 5 years. Whether or not we dream beyond 5 years, 5 years will come, 10 years will come, 50 years will come, and it will pass. If it meets us unprepared, we would be the worse for it. And that's one message I would like to leave with us. The aspirations that the African Union has drawn up is very pivotal. The other aspirations, I mean, is very pivotal to the actualization of this economic development, because they really do go together. It's like it's a chain reaction. When the economy is good, when the government of the individual nations, for example, is good, the gains of economy would have ripple effects in the countries, in the particular countries and the countries around, and trade will boom, and there will be significant progress. I do believe that everything works together, and the AU, given its commitment to this to the agenda, would see to it that it's actualized.
Okay, thank you. AU has to really put things together to see to the realization of this economic development. And I wish to ask you, what's the mentality that African leaders should have towards realizing economic development to achieve Agenda 2063? What is the mindset of these African leaders? Or what should be, sorry, the mindset of these African leaders?
Okay, African leaders should understand that to the extent that we do not run monarchy, I mean the political leaders, to the extent that it is not a monarchy, it is not compulsory that their children have to go into politics or benefit significantly from the gains of politics. African leaders should understand that it is only, they can only live fulfilled and complete lives when they are people, when they've rendered, the service that they are meant to render to their people in good conscience. African leaders should understand that, they are there to serve the people. The idea of people pandering to you, people worshiping, people not being able to tell the truth to many African leaders. And it is very unfortunate that even many African leaders that start well, they eventually descend into tyranny. They eventually become those kind of people that nobody can speak to them, nobody can persuade them. They exterminate the ones that whose opinion contrasts with theirs, and they leave only sycophants in their environment. They leave only people that deceive them. They leave only people that sing their praise. They leave only people that want to use them as stepboard to actualize their own selfish and barbaric goals and aspirations. Leaders that would not have anyone correct them or guide them, those kind of leaders eventually turn out to be incorrigible. No one can correct them. They dare the international organizations and they tell them that there's nothing anybody can do to them. And these leaders should understand that they are there to serve the people. The people put them there in the places where elections are free and fair. And even when election is not free and fair, whether they got there by their own shenanigans and by their own fast one, whichever way they got there, they are expected to serve those people, whether the people elected you or you elected yourself. The leaders should understand, that eyes are on them now, and the people are awakened. The speed with which information is passed across is really very fast now. And if something happens in Maputo, somebody in Lagos quickly picks it up. Something is happening in Douala, it's not difficult for somebody in New York to know. The speed of information transfer now is very fast. So there's very little they can get away with. And this is me advising them to wake up and smell the coffee, because whether with their support or not, Africa is going to become great again. Let me remind you that civilization began in Africa. Everything that is called civilization started in Africa. In the old time Egypt, that was where civilization started from. And that's to tell you that Africa has got the potentials to be several times more than it is now, not just in size, but in riches. And the narrative that Africa is overpopulated should be done away with. A lot of people, they come with the carrot and stick approach. I don't want to go into how much the West has undermined Africa this evening. That's a subject for another day. And like I say, many people do not want us to say that, because they say, why do you find yourself in the Western world when you have to? But the truth be told, but they have undermined us because we let them. Because the people that were at the ends of our affairs, they were not committed enough to stand for us. But right now, Africa is rising, and we are going to the new move of the people, the informed, exposed, knowledgeable people of the African continent. They are rising and they are going to make the difference that is expected. And we are grateful that there's a blueprint like the Agenda 2063, and we are going to dive deep into it and mine all the benefits that can come from it. The international organizations that are in Africa, the AFDB, African Development Bank, and all such like, I believe that they have good intentions. I know a couple of the officials personally, and I know that they are people that have good head on their neck, like I like to describe them, and they are seeking for the good of the African people, and the good will come our way. It's just a question of time.
Okay, we have about 9 minutes to go. I wish to ask you, are you of the opinion that if all African leaders and countries could come out with a harmonized structural plan for development, we will realize development go much faster than each country strategizing for its own development?
That's true, though not in the whole. These nations have existed separately for so long, albeit man-made. The barriers are basically man-made. The Berlin Conference is what brought about the divisions of the African nations. As much as those barriers are man-made, there's a lot that needs to be done to harmonize, them together. So long as there's no territory or country or any of the African states that is consciously doing anything that is counterproductive, so long as no one is seeking to undermine the other, I mean, the sky is large enough for every one of us to flap our wings. There are potentials in every of the African nations. Yes, international relations should come into play, not so much as harmonizing the harmonization of our system of government, because that's not going to happen so quickly. We're a different set of people. Very many of the African nations, for example, are composed of multivariates of tribes, many of which have different ways and cultures. Even Nigeria alone as it is could conveniently be 3, 4, 5 nations if it were to break up. So the goal is not so much as looking alike. The goal is not for us to the goal should not be, that can be in the long run, but the immediate goal should not be some form of harmonization, rather that everybody fulfills their potential, everybody perform at the highest level of their potential, and where support and help is needed, a framework should be defined and established, that this support and this help can be shared between the nations of the African of the African continent.
Thank you very much. We cannot go without talking about the pandemic, which has laid bare some of the lacunes that we have in our African countries as far as economic development is concerned. Last time when you were with me on the studio here, we talked about farmers not being able to make ends meet. And we see countries equally that are involved with tourism having things restricted. How do you see the effect of this pandemic, or the effect of this pandemic on development, should things continue the way they are?
Thank you very much. Regarding the pandemic, I believe that as a people, we have only learned one other way to not do it. And this is what I mean. You would agree with me that Africa has been, or the African nations have been, one of the luckiest, favored as regards this pandemic, given the statistics that we are seeing in seemingly advanced nations of the world. And that's to tell you again of how ruddy, how tough, and how advantaged our weather is. Our weather is everything to be desired. Though businesses have been disrupted and life has not run as it should as a result of the pandemic, I believe that a quick roadmap, and I'm happy at what the new Director General of the World Trade Organization, in person of Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, is doing. She is very, very, very positive about how to ensure that the nations that the impact of the pandemic on trade is reduced to the minimum, to the barest minimum. The agenda that she has is very robust, and there are very many good such agenda on the African continent that have been developed by development organizations and international organizations. I believe that if this agenda are followed through, it's just a question of time. The African nations will bounce back. Farmers can get better, but the plans and the framework that are being developed or that have been developed must be followed through to the letter. And I believe that there is an opportunity for us in this pandemic. I see opportunity. I see opportunity because monies did not disappear, do not just go into thin here. Monies exchange hands, even as a result of this pandemic. Africa can be that place where the resources flow to as a result of the pandemic. Africa can be that place where the finance flows to as a result of the pandemic. We only need to place ourselves, at an advantage position to be able to reap that benefit. Like, the money is flowing to China now. I'm sad to say, but the truth is that the money is flowing to China because a lot of the vaccines and all that are coming out of China. If Africa, and do not forget that Africa has dealt with, in my opinion, tougher, strains of disease-causing organisms before now, and we've been able to deal with them. We only need to consolidate on our past successes, and yeah, we will come out tops even despite the pandemic. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Okay, I think he's gone off. We are gradually coming to the close of this meeting. You are muted.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bakare. Maybe you just round up and give us a last word of encouragement. We are really already out of time.
Okay.
Maybe just a few words to round up. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Yeah, conclusively, I want to say a very big thank you to everyone that have listened in this evening and those that will be listening hereafter. And my parting words to you this evening is that we have to look on the brighter side. We have to look on what is good with Africa. We have to look and see that our young population is vibrant and dynamic. They are doing a lot of amazing things. They are being bought over by big companies in the Western world, and they are being valued at billions of dollars. We can look on this bright side and suit our pains and look and understand that the future can only get brighter. Thank you very much, and
Thank you.
have a very good evening
Thank
or
you
afternoon
so much.
or morning,
Yeah.
depending on where you are.
Okay, thank you so much, Daniel. You say we should look at the brighter side and keep working hard. and we propose that we should have great politicians who have great visions, and that we must not want to be unique, but that each country should try to do her best to see that development actually follows. Thank you so much. The time is always very short, and we are happy to have had you. Hoping to see you again next time when we invite you to come over to the studio. Thank you very much, and bye bye for now.
Thank you. It's always my pleasure.